the Afronauts. Love it. Okay. Black astronauts, Afronauts. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Keith, editor-in-chief of The Quintessential Gentleman, and today we are talking to Mr. Leland Melvin. What's going on? How are you?
Eric K. No, Eric Keith. Sorry. How you doing, man? This is a very exciting time to be alive in the USA with this movie coming out, man.
Yeah, no, awesome, awesome. And you are an astronaut. We are talking to you because there is a new film documentary called The Space Race, National Geographic. I saw it. One, I didn't know it was something I needed to see. Let's start there. And then two, just first of all, my mind racing. I'm upset. I'm happy. I'm upset.
Right.
I'm happy as I learn these historical facts, which we'll definitely get into. But first and foremost, I want to know, you always wanted to go to space? Was that the dream of yours? Is, oh, forget the Earth. I want to see what's up there.
Eric, when I was a kid, man, I was the antenna engineer holding the rabbit ears. You probably don't even know about rabbit ears, man.
I know about rabbit ears.
Black and white Sylvania television set, July 1969. My dad's got me holding the antenna on the TV. Move the right hand down 30 degrees. Okay, right there. Don't move. I couldn't even see the actual transmission. So when the moon landing happened, Neil and Buzz walking on the moon, the next day all the kids wanted to play astronaut. I didn't see the transmission, but I didn't want to be them. I didn't see someone who like me up there doing that. And also my parents always told me I could be anything I wanted, but for some reason that didn't seem possible
Mm,
because of there was no one in the history books that had tried that.
yeah.
And that's exactly what this movie is talking about, man. Back in the 60s, who would have been the first?
So you didn't see the representation, didn't know that that was even possible for you. At what point in your life did that become a reality?
Yeah, Eric, I was working at NASA Langley Research Center and doing some engineering, some research and stuff on fiber optics and different stuff. And this friend of mine, Tom Kashingaki, a brother, came up to me and said, "Hey, they're looking for astronauts that are materials scientists. Here's the application. Fill this out." I was in the application like, whatever, I ain't be no astronaut. And I'm working at NASA.
Yeah.
And and then I didn't fill it out, but one of my other boys, Charlie Camarda, he filled the application out. He got in. And I said, that knucklehead got in. Wait a minute. If he can get in, I can get in. So the
Yep.
next election, I filled out the application and I got in. But between that time, I learned what Charlie was doing. He was flying jets. He was doing training in the neutral buoyancy laboratory. He was training to go to space.
So one, it's wild that you were working at NASA and never even thought that you could fill any of the high reaching, I won't call them high ranking, but just that
Right.
type of job within the organization.
Right.
Um, and I think that, kind of looking at the documentary, which, growing up, you just think of racism just as a whole, right? We already know we're Black in America, this is what we deal with. But to learn the specific, like intricate parts of how racism played,
Right.
it blows my mind, right? About how the things that one, I again in the documentary you talk about how they created this curriculum or like these basically these lists of things that someone had to do in order to be accepted, which they just did it just to make sure Black people couldn't do it. Then Black people did it, and
Right.
then it did it again. It's like, what is like, we're really like, this is really life. And I want to know from the early days of you working at NASA, how was that experience?
You
And
know,
what
that's
year, I'm sorry to cut you off. What year did you start at NASA?
I started at NASA in 1989. But the most incredible thing was I never wanted to work at NASA. I was a material science engineer graduating from the University of Virginia with my master's degree, and I was at a career fair, and I was thinking about, hey, I'm gonna work at DuPont or Dow, get paid. And
Yeah.
this woman comes up to me. Her name is Rosa Webster. She's a black physicist at NASA, and
Mm,
she's recruiting. And the center director at NASA Langley said, if you find the candidates, you can hire them on the spot.
yeah.
And I looked at the NASA booth. I'm like, I'm not going there. And she finds me and says, hey, what's your name? I'm Leland. I've been looking for you. Come here. Help me take these books to my car. Help me do this. I had a letter that was saying, sent to me in the mail saying, you have been accepted to work at NASA Langley Research Center. And I hadn't even been down there to see it. So I had to go down and look to see where I was going to actually be working, man. And they realized that the only way that they're going to bring diversity to NASA and Langley was to go out and recruit and get the talent. And it was me, a guy named Keith Norwood, Brian Holman. We all went to UVA. They came and got us, man, and were hiring us on the spot. And we all worked together and rose, and it was just an incredible experience. So, and the guy who identified this, he was a Italian guy. I can't remember his name, but he was like, we got to make a difference. We got to change things. So even though we didn't have that representation, the representation came and found us to make sure that we were part of the story.
Yeah.
And
It's
Katherine Johnson, that's when I met Katherine Johnson from
okay.
Hidden Figures
Hidden
at
Figures, yeah.
NASA Langley. It
Wow.
was, think about
Wow.
that, man.
And it's interesting because you look at that film. I referenced that film and what they were going through comparative to watching kind of the history of the Afronauts. Love it. Okay. Black astronauts, Afronauts. I'm using that forever, just so everybody knows. But to see that history and it's just so interesting because as the first black astronaut is going into space and going through all this stuff, we're still growing as a country and unlearning and trying to fix things like that. It's funny in the doc, there's a quote that says, "Civil rights in our country, it ain't rocket science." I wonder who said that. I don't know, but
But I mean, when we had that discussion, that was around trying to support Victor Glover, who's the first black astronaut to be on a long duration mission.
yeah.
He was in space with a George Floyd
Mm,
painting.
wow.
And we were lifting him up. All of us did a Zoom call with him to give him what he needed. He's got a wife and 4 daughters back in Houston. And this was right during the deliberation of, Derek Chauvin. Was
Yeah.
Derek Chauvin going to be exonerated or was he going to be, charged? And that was a really tough time. And that's when I said that quote, man, because it was like, it ain't that hard. You just treat people the way you want to be treated. That's civil rights. You're being civil to the people around you and you're giving them rights.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not rocket science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely not rocket science.
And one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take your word for it because I know you know about rocket science. So,
Yeah, you gotta know some rocket equations to get up there.
yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, so was it during that time when you all I would kind of say kind of galvanized the Afronauts was that like that was like the first time like you guys had like this, I won't say members only, but this type of kind of cohort of you guys getting together? Was it just a little bit kind of segmented when you guys were kind of coming up throughout the years?
Well, when you're in the Corps, I mean, when you think about, back when I started in 1998, there were probably like 200 and something astronauts. And out of that 200, the active astronauts that you would see daily, it was Stephanie Wilson, it was Robert Kerbeam, it was me, Mae Jemison had gone, Yvonne Cagle, Joan Higginbotham. So you had maybe 5 or 6 people in the 200 that you would see or maybe not see while you're training, you're doing your own thing, you're with your class. I was the only African American person in my class of 31. So I was with them most of the time training. And then you see Joni like, hey, how you doing? Or being, hey, what's up, man? But it wasn't like we were getting together, having lunch and talking about, hey, you okay? And more so with Beamer, because Beamer, he was our class, like our class chaperone. So I could interact with him a little bit more, but usually it wasn't like that until this moment when, Victor needed us. And we all got on that call, and remember the footage when all the names are popping up, it was like, wow, everybody's here. Guy Bluford, first brother who went to space. I mean, it was Charlie Bolden, man, Bernard Jones. So it was monumental to see us come together around another brother who was in space,
Yeah.
trying to get through what would be potentially a very tough time,
Yeah. No, for sure.
and we need to do that before we have that tough time.
No, I completely understand. I want to touch on another piece of the doc that, to be honest, he has a high school actually in Atlanta, and that's Brian McNair. And unfortunately, him and the crew died in explosion, 1986.
Right.
I want to know, why do you feel like it was so important for, after that catastrophe, to like go back, like in your head, like why was it okay? Yes, because a lot, even me, I said, oh, this a wrap, because it's already unfamiliar, right? This is not
Right.
normal,
Right.
this is average, there's so many things. um but then after, I saw the film, it's like it's important for us to go out there, and he would want this. I would definitely like to know your thoughts on it.
So in '86, I was at University of Richmond walking through the student commons, a chemistry major, seeing the solid rocket booster spiraling down after the explosion and the demise of, Ron and the crew. And, when you explore, when you're on the cutting edge, that there's going to be something that's going to happen, right? And and a similar thing happened on the Columbia accident in 2001, when we lost uh, Michael Anderson, another brother.
Mhm.
And I was there to console the parents. And the father said to me, we must continue to fly to honor their legacy. We
Mhm.
don't let something like that keep us from continuing to explore, because we've always been explorers, you
Yeah.
know? And so the only way to honor the legacy of our forefathers is to keep doing it, is to keep grinding, is to keep, in spite of. Harriet Tubman said, I got the freedom. They said, you can't go back. She said, watch me, right?
Right.
So watch me explore, watch me build my own rocket, watch me keep rising, even though my forefathers perished under whips and chains and dogs. And so we owe it to them to not give up and keep going, man. That's one of the most powerful things that was inside of me from, I didn't meet Ron, but I knew his wife, Cheryl. We lived in the same neighborhood. We would walk in Ron McNair Park, and
Wow.
she would talk about his legacy.
Yeah.
MIT, laser physics.
Yeah. Yeah.
His I say this, his dissertation got stolen, and he recreated it in his head so he could
Wow.
graduate with his PhD.
Wow.
That's tight, man. So I gotta honor that, right? I can't let that go by the wayside, because he did that for us. So the next brother that goes to MIT to get his laser physics, and they know, oh yeah, Ron McNair rocked this. Yeah, come on, we're gonna help you get, we're not gonna put up barriers. We know you're capable of this because of the people that have been here before. So that's why the history is so important, because so many of our kids don't see the Ed Dwights or the Harriets or the Ron McNairs or Michael Andersons, and don't know the sacrifices that have been made for us to have the quintessential gentleman, or to have this iPhone 14 Pro that can make a movie, that can film a movie in cinematic mode, or all the things that we have as human beings on this planet. We have been at the forefront of helping bring this to the forefront, but we don't know it.
We don't know it. And I would say, I'm a documentary buff, so I'm just so intrigued by greatness and how people got to greatness, and then Black people being great. Just throw it all together, because in order for us to be great, it's not easy. Especially in this country.
Right.
So I can't wait for people to watch the documentary and just learn so much about it. I want to know, what was the best advice that you have ever gotten from a fellow astronaut or someone from the past?
So Charlie Bolden in the movie talks about how Ron said, "Are you going to apply?" And Charlie said, "Not on your life. They would never pick me." And Ron said, "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard, you know?" And so when I was thinking about applying, Charlie Bolden, I was up at NASA headquarters. He was like working there. He became the administrator at one point. And I said, "I'm thinking about applying." He said, "You can't get in unless you apply. You
Wow.
must apply." And so that he passed that on from the message he got from Ron McNair. And he flew 4 times, Charlie, 4 times, and became the NASA administrator under President Obama. So if he had not applied, we wouldn't have seen those works. I wouldn't have been the associate administrator for education. Charlie brought me on to help inspire the next generation of explorers, man. Our young kids and people, and telling parents that you need to get your kids some a chemistry set or Legos or something to fuel their curiosity so that they can hands-on experiential activities at home. And that's another thing that we need to know as a people, the things you need to do to help get you ready for these things, working with tools, building things, looking up at the night sky. Hey, there's a space shuttle going overhead. Who's on that? Oh, it's Victor Glover. Wait a minute. Is that rocket going to the moon? Wait a minute. Victor Glover's going to the moon next year. Who would ever thought that? That's why it's so important.
And no excuse in 2024 when, just like you said, that phone you could Google.
Make a full-length movie on that phone, man. You can make your own documentary. And and the other thing about that, Eric, this is so important. You love documentaries, but it's telling stories. It's the storytelling. Charlie talked about the African griot who was the storyteller, who took all that information and kept passing it on to the next generation so they could tell the story and tell the story. And now we're banning books, and we're trying to take the history away so that you don't even know what was done back in the day or what was possible. And if you can do it back then, when dogs and chains and whips and people are coming at you, we can definitely do it now, man. No matter what we're going through, right? There's a lot that's happening, but no matter what, we're not, the dogs aren't coming. Hopefully not won't come. But you know what I'm saying? It's right, right. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I get
so I think that's why this movie needs to be seen by every kid, by every parent, Black, white, Puerto Rican, Jew, Italian, everybody needs to see this so they know the history. In the 1960s, there was a Black man named Ed Dwight who was in contention to be the first Black astronaut. Back then they called it the first Negro astronaut, right? But the first. And then you listen to what Lisa Cortez, producer of the movie, and Diego Mendoza, the music. Did you hear the music? Earth, Wind, and Fire, Sun Ra, the books, Octavia Butler. And her quote was, "You got to write yourself into history. You might not be included. You got to write yourself in." That was one of the most powerful quotes, besides Charlie's, that was just it's heartfelt, man.
Has your perspective on politics and just human nature and things like that changed when you hit orbit, like when you finally were out, out of the earth? Did that change your perspective on things?
Yeah, Eric, it's funny, you get so myopically focused on doing the thing that there to do, which is like I had to install this $2 billion laboratory to the space station. And if I had just messed it up with a robotic arm, if I messed it up just a little bit, that's a $2 billion paperweight. And there are 10,000 people in Europe that don't have jobs because I screwed it up. So focus, get that done, mission objective, primary mission objective. And after we did that, Peggy Whitson, the first female commander, invited us over to the Russian segment to have a meal. She said, "You guys bring the vegetables, we'll have the meat." So we float over with this bag of vegetables, and we're having a meal with people who used to fight against us, Russians and Germans, French. African American, Asian American, all breaking bread at 17,500 miles per hour, going around the planet every 90 minutes while listening to Sade's Smooth Operator. I
Wow.
mean, think about that, man. You're already like looking at the planet and everything, and then Sade is singing on the mic, man. Just like, and so that's when your perspective changes. You don't see borders, right? You see the planet as one living being. You're seeing all of humanity down there, and you're depending on people that used to fight against you to work together, or you all perish. If I flip the wrong switch, if Yuri flips the wrong switch, if Hans flips the wrong, we're gone. So we work together. That's like United Nations up there, you know. You got to get it right, man, or it's not good for everybody, you know.
Okay. I have one little off the wall question. I want to know what is one misconception about space that us down here, just 100% believe that's not really true.
The Earth is round; it's not flat.
Okay. I believe that, okay, but I understand.
There are a lot of people. I was at a restaurant eating with my family, man.
Yeah.
And the waitress was like, I know you went to space and everything, but I just gotta know, is it round or is it flat? I'm like, what? Seriously? I mean, and
Yeah.
and I've been around, so she at least gave me the opportunity to say which one it was because I've been there and I've seen it. I've had people that say to me, well, look, I saw this thing on YouTube and I know it's flat. So how did you fake it? How'd you fake it, Leland? I'm like, don't talk to me.
All right. And on that note, my last question for you is I want to know, what do you want Black men to get out of watching the space race?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for brothers to glean from this is that at the most difficult times in a person's life, Ed Dwight was kicked out of the program. We don't need you in to be an astronaut, but he didn't give up. He pivoted. He became an artist. He got his master of the fine arts, and he's a world-renowned sculptor. In Texas, there is a two-story sculpture in the capital of Texas, Austin, with starting with an enslaved person and ending with Dr. Bernard Harris, astronaut Dr. Bernard Harris, who was the first brother to be an astronaut from Texas and do a spacewalk. And so when you look at that juxtaposition of enslaved to one of the highest positions that you can get to, it was possible because we have this legacy of excellence and beauty and kindness and stuff in our people that have paved that way. So know about that history so you know that it's possible for you and your kids. That's the other thing. Is we got to pass this down like the griot in Africa to the children so they hear these stories and know, wait a minute, Ed Dwight would have been the first. Wait a minute, Ed White pivoted. He got depressed a little bit, but he pivoted and became an artist. And he may go back to space. He may go to space at 90 years old, man.
Hey,
It ain't
wait.
over
I'm
yet.
gonna watch it from here though. I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna see how you doing from here. But yes, I would love for him to. I saw that and I just see the struggle, right? And I think it's like one thing, your job is already hard enough. And then on
Right.
top of it, having to deal with the people around you who you are supposed to work together and are ultimately out to get you. And
And
it's not,
they were told his classmates were told not to speak to him,
yeah,
not
yeah.
to interact with him, don't drink with him, don't, so he's in an island trying to do one of the hardest things by yourself. But Harriet Tubman, she tried to free some people. They didn't want to come along because they didn't know the condition. They didn't understand the conditions they were really in and that they were not free. So that's why you got to listen to the people that know the plight that we're in so that they can get to that next level.
It's true. It's so true. Well, Mr. Leland Melvin, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a representation. Thank you for being a hero. This was a phenomenal movie. I'm super excited to have watched it. Can't wait to tell everybody else to watch it. my friends don't like me because I see stuff before them because of my job, but you know, neither here nor there. But once it comes out, I'm definitely gonna share it with everyone. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I want to thank you for being the griot sharing the story, because you're putting it out there to your millions of followers. I'm sure you got 2, 3 million out there. But no, seriously, this is why it's so important that we tell this story to everyone that has a voice. You got a voice. And so we thank you. Nat Geo thanks you for helping spread this story so that that little boy over there sees it and goes, wow, Eric Keith told me this movie's coming out. I'm going to watch it. And now I'm going to go to Mars. Watch me.
I love it. Thank you, Mr. Melvin. I appreciate it. Enjoy this Virginia weather you got going on. I know it's snowing in New York. You have snow or it's just cold?
I just finished shoveling shoveling the driveway, man. So yeah, we got snow.
Yeah, y'all got snow. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and we look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you, brother. Much peace and love, man.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.